pick and choose. So like I learned as a kid that if it's not a matter of principle, just adjust lah. Come on.
What you're saying is that we should be willing to pay for a higher price for that sustainability. That's not always the case in the real world.
Personally, this is my view. It's okay if you did something that is not so sustainable first. You should realize that I'm doing something right because everybody out there is doing it too. So it must be a need in society.
Hey guys, welcome to Business Unplanned, a podcast where we interview business leaders from around the region and unravel the stories behind the growth of their business. We're going to take a deep dive into the unseen and often unheard stories of how things don't always go to plan. So stay tuned because we're going to be interviewing some great folks. Welcome back to Business Unplanned, everybody. We hope everyone is faring well during these strange times. Joining us today for our very first interview episode, we welcome Gurpreet Singh, partner of Biji-biji and CEO of Me.reka. Now that's Me.reka. Gurpreet graduated from the University of Manchester with a Bachelor of Applied Science in Physics in 2010 and has since been involved in the industry of sustainability, having started 2 companies with roles including being CEO, CTO, and head of R&D. Today we'll be covering the journey of how it all came to be. Welcome to episode 1. Gurpreet, thank you so much for being on the show. We genuinely appreciate it.
That's all right. Thank you very much for having me, Brendan, Daniel. Pleasure to meet you guys.
You too. Now, to kick things off, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Who is Gurpreet Singh?
I'm just another guy, right? And, I believe in the little things that can make the big things work. So it's a sum total of the parts. And as someone who's alive, who has the pleasure of existing, I want to play my part and contribute back to society and be the best person I can be. And that's who I am. So I grew up in a place called Selayang in Kuala Lumpur. It wasn't in Kuala Lumpur at the time, but now it's been engulfed by KL. I continued on to do my A-levels in health, a university college, and then I got the opportunity for a scholarship to Manchester when I was about 19. Went there to do my degree in physics, made a whole bunch of friends, families, learned new perspectives and ideas. That was the whole idea of going out of Malaysia at the time. However, I always knew that, this country is a developing nation. And as a developing nation, there is an opportunity to go both ways, right? You could become overdeveloped and be like a city like Jakarta or Delhi or something like this, and it could be chaos if unplanned. Or you could progress into a more developed city and society, into a first world nation. So I always knew that I wanted to come back to Malaysia to play my part as a Malaysian and contribute back to the Malaysian culture and society. Because it's the place where I come from. It's a beautiful place, isn't it, guys?
It is.
Yeah.
It's the best.
And once I finished my degree, I came back to Malaysia at the call of a friend who wanted to start a biomass integrated refinery. And I helped him out to do this. And so I used my skills in physics to build machinery for the palm oil waste industry, right? And I did that for 3 years. However, I learned all the challenges in business and growing up in adulthood. All the wheeling and dealings, the big players came, of course, because it's the palm oil industry, right? Malaysia's biggest economy. The big factories, the manufacturers, the mills, the farms. We had to run a whole industrial operation with investors, etc. A lot of learnings there because I failed tremendously. However, after that, I decided hey, let's waste is waste. Let's not look at the agricultural waste problem, but now we look at the urban waste problem. So back home, I had friends who were in corporate, who were doing other jobs with non-profits, etc., who were interested in starting Biji-biji initiative. And I decided to help lend a hand and make this a success.
You have experience in pivoting business ideas. So you had a big pivot in your life, and now that's all led up to what you've been doing at Me.reka, where you are CEO. So tell us a little bit more about what that business is and what it hopes to achieve.
So Me.reka is a 21st century education center. We're trying to reimagine the future of making. Me.reka's mission has always been to, number one, bring the opportunities available to those who have it, to those who do not, right? The underserved, the marginalized. These are the people who we want to offer the same educational experiences, the same learning outcomes that people get every day in cities and universities and private education institutions. That's our first mission. Up till today, we've kind of integrated a few of the ideas we've had over the years into this open source platform that we are trying to launch at the moment, and is to connect underutilized resources with those who need it the most, right? Because there is an abundance of resources if you need in this country or anywhere in this world. Talk about 3D printers, laser cutters, DSLR cameras, sewing machines, welding machines, woodworking tools, high-end computers, food technology kitchens, things like this, electronic slabs, oscilloscopes, things like this cost in the thousands, if not in the hundreds of thousands per item. However, a lot of these resources in this country are not being tapped and maximized to its full potential. Usually, if you have a machine in a factory, it runs 24 hours a day, right? And on the other hand, we have this matching gap that's happening where lots of people right now need these tools, right? There's a lot of entrepreneurs, there's a lot of startups, there's a lot of people who want to realize their imaginations into a real world product. However, they do not know how to go about it besides outsourcing it to a factory maybe, or getting the manufacturers just to do it from China or something like that. In this decentralized platform model, we're going to provide a matching system for those who want either machines or equipment, those who would like spaces. For example, like co-working spaces has been a thing for like a bunch of years now, isn't it? But we believe co-working spaces is just a really limited use case of the sharing economy model. There is much more that can be shared, like shared resources. I think initially wanted to do this where you have a co-working space where you have shared financial services, HR services, kitchen services, etc. But in the end, I think they went for the real estate property model. We really believe that we want to go the whole run. So sharing not just a space for you to work, but sharing a workshop if you need, sharing a dance studio if that's the requirements, or an event space, sharing of expertise. Because sometimes if you want to make something, you might know everything about electronics engineering, right? And you make the most amazing, like state-of-the-art electronic gadget. But without the right packaging for that product, it's meaningless. It's 98% that is not a finished product, right? And sometimes you just need that little bit of expertise, maybe from a product designer to come and help an electronics engineer to realize their product. So it's a matching service for expertise too, like you'll see on Fiverr and Upwork, etc. And the last being a matching service for knowledge, because sometimes we're just missing a certain skill to be able to realize our imagination into a product. If we could just learn that skill, we'd be able to do wonders. So
what has the uptake been like by Me.reka, by the general public? Who are you seeing actually utilizing these spaces now that you've promoted them?
There are plenty of young entrepreneurs who need access to equipment and expertise to realize their visions and missions for their startups. We have a lot of students who come from out of town areas who do not yet know what the future of work is going to hold, right? And we allow them to come in and learn and experience, because we're human, monkey see, monkey do. Like, all I need to do is see you make a fire, and I'm going to know how to make a fire after that, right? I just got to watch a YouTube video. So how is a youth who comes from a village, let's say in Tanjung Malim, going to know about the potential of virtual reality and the Internet of Things if they never experienced it before? If they never understand what it's like. So if you come to Me.reka and spaces like us, they can give this a shot. They can try it out. They can experience what it's like, and then they would spark. Our aim is to spark a little bit of imagination in them. So that's another uptake of users in the maker spaces. We have a lot of corporates who are interested in ethical, sustainable door gifts and products for their marketing purposes and CSR purposes. They are able to access these spaces too, to purchase custom-made equipment that is locally manufactured and sourced, as opposed to buying it in bulk from China. And lastly, I would say just the hobbies, right? The crazy lunatics who want to try shit out and fail quickly and fail fast.
I love that. So would it be fair to say that Me.reka was born out of Biji-biji, because Biji-biji focuses on the sustainable initiatives, but
Yes.
Me.reka sounds like you're empowering everybody at a foundational level to then do the same.
Absolutely, you got it spot on, Daniel. So what transpired was we were doing Biji-biji initiative for the first 5 years, and we realized like it's as sustainable as we're trying to make it as a business. It wasn't being sustainable to ourselves, right? There were about 30 to 50 of us. We were doing custom design, which means like every project was different, every project was new. Nobody wanted what the other client got, etc. And it was very painful and very tough because not a lot of suppliers and factories in this country want to do something when it's out of norm, right? So, for example, if you're in the events industry and you're building like the Hari Raya decorations at a shopping mall, most people would want to use styrofoam, MDF, which is a really horrible material, and really low grade, non-recyclable, perishable stuffs. So the moment somebody wants to do something unique and customized, usually a lot of suppliers refrain. So Biji was addressing this industry at the time. But over the years, we realized like how much can we do? Like yeah, we can recycle maybe 5 tons of metal in a month. We can build it into sculptures, etc. But if we truly want to make impact, is how many people we can inspire to do the same, right? So being an open source organization, like if someone copies our designs and our products, like we're all about it. We're like, you rock, because we think it's a good idea and we want to see more of this happen in the world. So if you want to copy my idea, please feel so and innovate that and take it further. Don't reinvent the wheel. It's already been done. Here it is. This is the model. You want to find out about financials. You want to find out about specifics, where to get stuff. Give us a call. We'll help you out with that. Yeah?
Sorry. So I do have a question on open source, and I am jumping the gun here. With open source, it's always the question of IP, right?
Yes.
Intellectual property. Who holds it? Who doesn't? Who actually owns it? For how long? And then, of course, like you said, copying, right? Copying the actual product or the design or something.
Mm-hmm.
How? And in your view, it's a good thing.
With open source, it's about copyleft, right? So we're not about copyright, we're not about IP, and it's open patents. It belongs to the public domain. We just think it's easier that way, and we believe it opens up a whole realm of world that was unimaginable before. Because when you believe in IP, when you believe in patenting, a lot of times you get caught up in like patenting your product before you even make it, and like sometimes companies crumble with their shareholders. Fighting about an idea that hasn't even been built yet, right? I find all of this to be a joke, to be honest. Personally, like, if like somebody else copies you, take it as a compliment. All you gotta do is make sure that you use your advantage of starting first to be better than them and to go and do the next best thing. I'll give you an example from a personal story, which is to do with the precious plastic project, if you're familiar with it. 4 years ago, I had a cosmetics company come and say they want to do a marketing campaign that utilizes plastics waste produced by their industry, and this plastic waste, they want people to come and recycle them in exchange for gift vouchers, etc. Because recycling is not a awareness issue, it's a behavioral issue, right? People all know recycling is important, but no one really does it because they can't be incentivized to do it. So how would we do something like that? They said, oh, we want to shred plastic and then create it into new products. I was like, okay, the first time is shredding the plastic. In the shredder, it's an industrial machine. At the time, I had no idea about the precious plastic project. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to build this machine now. And I've seen it before. I remember seeing it 4 years ago. I told the guy, I think I can make this machine. And he said, yeah, give it 2.5 years. You ain't going to get this machine, Mr. Singh. Like, trust me on that. So went back home after my meeting with Keels, got to the drawing board and trying to figure out how to go about doing this. And lo and behold, like within like half an hour, I realized that there had been an open source project just launched in the Netherlands by a guy called Dave Hackens, called the Precious Plastic Project, which is a mini, micro, manual, decentralized plastic recycling and upcycling system, right? So it's a manufacturing system of 4 machines. First step is, of course, you clean the plastic. You can shred it into small bits. Usually shredding is the first part of any recycling process. break it back down to its granular form. And you could take that shredded plastic, sort it out by different densities of material using a density separator. And then you could heat it up and squeeze it into any mold you want into a new product. So looking at this design and being able to download his 3D model and his laser cutting files, I was able to send the prototype for production to the CNC cutters within 48 hours. Within 1 month, me and my intern, who was 17 years old, we managed to make 3 of these machines that would otherwise probably have taken us 3 or 4 months, right? And I didn't have to spend time on the R&D. Of course, we had our own R&D after we got there. First, when it's open source, you always follow someone's design first. And usually they don't tell you every single detail because they want you to figure out some stuff too on your own. And then you innovate from there. So we managed to improve the hopping mechanism in this, and then we shared it back to the global community so people elsewhere around the world could benefit from it. So if we talk from a profit standpoint, right? Number one, open source allows you to make a myriad amount of products and things because the designs are shared. Imagine if you had to copyright all these things, how much time it would take, how many legal lawsuits you might get into, and things like that. Number two, open source gives you the confidence to do something because other people around the world are attempting it and sharing their designs. I don't know if you're familiar with a website called instructables.com. Instructables is one of my favorite sites, to be honest, and I used to read it every night before I went to bed. It's just a repository, a DIY heaven. It's like people making things and sharing how they made it, what are the steps they had, pictures, videos, bill of materials, sometimes even places to go and buy stuff. And other people comment, they share their files. It was really a magical idea for me. When I was in university as well, I saw this model of what I based Me.reka off, which is the Autodesk Pier 9 studio in San Francisco. You can check the place out. Like, it's one of the first maker spaces. It's actually where Instructables headquarters is, and they have these most state-of-the-art machines available for any artist who wants to experiment with them. Pure creativity with the technology really comes up with magic, right? You want people who have talent to have the resources and expertise they need, and the confidence to be able to realize their imagination. So you see some wicked innovations coming out from the Autodesk studio. I saw this in 2009, and ever since I've been wanting to emulate this setup in Malaysia, right, and have an open source, open workshop where people can come together and realize their ideas into products. So yeah, open source does make profit, like, in a big way. Please don't think that open source means like, you can't make any money from it because other people can copy you. Like, people are always going to copy you. Like, patenting is such an overrated idea. In 10 years, if you're not sharing, you're going to be doing business like how people did it 20 years ago. I think you're going to be an outcast in society and nobody's going to trust you. Your content is king, and like, your design is your content. How you go about it, why you go about it, that's what matters. Sharing your values. People buy your values. People buy the story behind what you do. If you're going to be out there just saying like, yeah, this is the price, this is the product, it meets the spec sheet, whatever, like this, what makes you more unique compared to everybody else? Why would people choose you? How would you float above the noise existingly in the market? And I think open source is one very powerful ideology for anyone to adopt in this day and age, because we need to move a lot faster than we already are, right? And if we don't do the steps that we need to do, like, we're going to be left behind. However, if we're smart about it, if we look at what developed nations are already doing, if we adopt the technologies that are available in Europe and America, the digital tools, the services that they are offering, we have the ability to leapfrog and be thought leaders in the world in coming years, right? But if you're just going to like get caught up in all the little things and how important your little big idea is and not be part of the whole ecosystem, then sorry, like guys, like, you're going to be far behind.
So I guess to kind of touch back a little bit on the profit / money making side, obviously you used open source in that prior project and you were able to leapfrog the timeline in your project because you're able to get it from overseas. How are you keeping Me.reka alive by doing this? Say in the future when open source is such a rampant thing and everybody is on Instructables to develop the next product, how do you keep Me.reka relevant and afloat?
I think two very important points in business that we should remember is like, number one, what's your secret sauce? What makes you special? Even though like you're delivering the same content as anybody else out there, this information is publicly available. What makes you special? Number two is about the relationships that you keep, right? Business is about relationships. If you do not maintain good relationships with your partners, with your clients, with your customers, suppliers, and your comrades in the same industry, you're bound to fail. Business is about partnerships, and partnerships are about relationships, right? So I don't think so there is an issue with being open source and everything is available out there. It's how we deliver the content. It's our personality, it's who we are, right? It's our style and our way of bringing the story to you. People find it really refreshing to share. We do creative workshops, right? When we first started doing creative workshops, I was personally a bit apprehensive about the whole situation because we would go out there to a shopping mall, engage like 30 kids or adults or something, and teach them how to do upcycling. Whether like one simple idea was we would take a plastic bottle, we would make them cut the bottom half off and take another bottle and do the same, prick some holes in between, weave zipper around it, and you have a plastic bottle DIY purse. And clients were paying us 100 ringgit a pack for a ticket. And at some point, I had to go up to my teammates and I was like, guys, do you think maybe we are ripping people off over here? Like, they're paying us a lot of money to take these plastic bottles and just like show people how to cut them with a piece of scissors. And like, we got paid like 100 ringgit when the bottle was only 3 ringgit when the Coca-Cola was inside it, right? So how does that make sense? But over the years, I started to learn myself why this was happening, because it's not about making a plastic bottle purse. It's about the experience that we bring when we come there. It's about the ideas that we share, about upcycling, about a decentralized economy, about a circular economy, about new business models for the future. If we're going to teach people about plastic, we talk about all the different types of plastic. How can you recycle? What can you go about and do? So no worries. Like the thing about business, guys, I believe the more people out there who do what you do, that should validate it for yourself. You should realize that I'm doing something right because everybody out there is doing it too. So it must be a need in society. The problem is when people start thinking like, oh, I want to do this thing that nobody does. No, it doesn't exist yet. Like maybe there's a good reason for that. There's 8 billion people right now in the world, and like don't be so self-confident to that extent, right? But what you should also not have the opposite point of view where like I find that a lot of young entrepreneurs in Malaysia, when they talk about making something, they're like, oh, idea itu alamak, orang lain dah buat. So if somebody else did the idea, then I can't do it because he already did it. And that is one super weird way of thinking that I don't get. And I want to share that, like, the more people who do what you do, I tell our entrepreneurs that, like, that means you're on the right track.
So to pivot onto something that everybody is doing and you're doing together, I want to touch upon your efforts right now producing PPE masks. Just PPE in general, which is, the face masks, the gowns, all the rest of it.
So this is a face shield and it's meant to protect frontliners from splatter because obviously this virus is carried in water droplets, right? So if you have a patient who's potentially positive and like they cough and sneeze, like this is going to protect you. This is one of many items that frontliners are needing this day and age to help them be protected and not get infected. Yeah.
So how did you suddenly pivot to get through this logistical nightmare of bringing together multiple hubs of manufacturers towards a common goal and to then reach out to 47 plus hospitals to make loads of equipment?
Okay, so since the MCO crisis in Malaysia has happened in Corona the month before that, we've realized that makers play a very unique part in this crisis, right? We have the ability to hack out solutions in really quick, really fast, prototype, innovate, learn quickly, fail, improve, reiterate our designs. So when the pandemic happened and when the MCO just kicked off, I reached out to our doctor friends who we said and said like, hey guys, like just wondering like, is everything okay for you? Like, you guys good? Like I'm seeing information coming in from overseas where in Italy, like doctors are prototyping PAPR masks. Like some people are talking about shortages of certain equipments in the medical industry. I asked about five of my doctor friends, and over a couple of days, because every day I'm reading new articles about this, and I'm like, oh my god, I hope this doesn't happen to Malaysia. And they say it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Gee, don't worry, it's still good. And by Saturday, the shit hit the fan, which was on the 20th of March, right? So on Saturday, we received a request like, guys, we don't know who can do this. Like, we really need face shields right now. We're like, oh, what's a face shield? Okay, so have a look at what a face shield is. That just looks like something that covers your face that's transparent, right? You can think of 1,000 ways to do something like that. And we're like, how many do you need? She said, I need about 300 units in the next 2 days because there's a COVID public screening happening and there's mass screenings and none of my staff are protected in a clinic kesehatan. So finally, we had a reason to do so because, like, being an entrepreneur, you always need to respond to a market need, number one, right? You can't just go off and say, I want to make this and I want to do something like this and just go about your own tangent. So we had a request. We went into the office at 9 a.m. on Sunday morning, prototype a design, saw what's out there available, heard that some of our friends in Taylor's Me.reka Makerspace were also on this because they had their own doctor friends who were reaching out to them, and they shared their design with me. And we were thinking about different methods we could go about it, but like there's so many question marks like, is the medical industry going to use this? Is it safe? Does it meet the spec? Like, or what about the materials? Is it sterilizable? Is it recyclable? Can they use it once? Is it reusable? Like, are we doing more damage than harm, damage than good, etc.? So we made about 30 units and we sent it out that evening itself. And we got some feedback from the industry, from the medical field. And they were just happy they had something, right? And they were really impressed with the design. And they said, yes, we want this. Over the coming days, we made about 300 units, given it to our friend, and we spread it to about 25 doctors from private specialist centers to HKL, to clinics and general practitioners in Malaysia. And the feedback came in very positive, right? And we're realizing when we made our first post, there were more requests coming in for this item. And we thought, okay, maybe the situation might be dire. So why not we come up with a request sheet where people can tell us what they want, as long as it's DIY, right? Because that's our field. So we weren't going to involve ourselves in food aid or something like this because that's not our expertise or domain. But if doctors need something that they don't have, right? Maybe this product is not going to meet the spec, but it's going to be doing the generic version that does the same thing. However, we had no knowledge in this industry, so we released the form. We have our Me.reka platform model been brewing for a couple of years now, and we decided to strip down the Me.reka platform into a bare bones use case, into a public Airtable. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Airtables, and it's just like a spreadsheet. It's like Excel, but it's an Excel on steroids. That's how I like to describe it. And in that 5 days, we realized, hey, there are a lot of makers in this country that are currently responding to this pandemic. And big up the Malaysians, man. Like, these guys, they've been burning through their 3D print filament all around the country, all around the world, in fact. There are like our friends in Kuching had, they are a songket manufacturing social business. I'm not sure if you're familiar with songkets. Like one songket costs like tens of thousands of dollars. Even if it's this size, it might be like, this might be 1,000 ringgit songket, right? For so they had started making PPEs because they had requests coming in from Sarawak, and they were asking us about face shields over there. So we decided to mobilize our maker network that we knew. We called our friends at Penang Science Cluster, at Kinabalu Coders and House, and we said, hey guys, like, we had this request sheet and people are asking for this all around the country. So maybe we all need to kind of like play our part and chip in and give a little bit of relief to the frontliners who need it the most. In the same time, like the MCO had just started, right? And we were thinking, okay, so it's MCO, and then we need to manufacture like a bunch of face shields. Probably it's looking like 10, 20,000 units right now based upon the requests we're receiving. So we write a letter for the police, and we go to the police station. So on Sunday night, my partner Rashwin goes to the Balai Police in Zental and says, "Hey guys, I just want you to know, like, our social business needs to function right now because we're going to be providing some essential services for frontliners who need it most." And they're like, "Yeah, you don't need us to sign that. You just go and do your work, right?" So we're like, "Okay." The cops told us they don't need to like put the chop on our letter, so we got a letter that we have our own company chop on, and it seems like it's working. So
Classic
the next,
Malaysian.
yeah, just total Malaysian style. Right? So the next day, we needed our friends to move in other states and things like that, and even within Kuala Lumpur. So they're like, "Yeah, but we need a letter." Like, so I called my laser cutters on my suppliers from the past 5-6 years, and I was like, "Guys, I need you to come to the office now. I need you to cut this device, and I need you not to stop for the next 3 weeks, right?" And they're like, "Sing, bagi permit, kita mau permit." So I started issuing my own permit, and like that lasted for a good 2 weeks, right? About good 10 days, right? We had about 35, 45 people on our permit who were operating based on like the jurisdiction of Me.reka to do this until the government actually gave us a permit after 10 days from the MCO, and now we can officially operate and share this with our partner network. So that's been happening, and to date, we've collected about 350 requests from the hospitals. We've had requests for up to 50,000 units of shields just on our form, right? So mind you, like this collaboration is like happening between multiple parties. So there's like about 6 central organizations who are collecting the data and receiving hospital requests from the non-hospital sector. So we're in collaboration with a few of them, and we happily share our information and cross-reference between these other organizations. But in our database alone, about 50,000 face shield requests, 60,000 gowns. We have like 5,000 aero chamber requests, and like I didn't even know what an aero chamber was 3 weeks ago, right? And yeah, that's how we started pretty much on this relief initiative.
It kind of ties back so strongly into to your point of open source and how powerful it can be when it's used for the right reasons, right? Especially in a time like that. And just to pull up some stats, and I don't know how updated these are, but you've made to date 15,785 face shields.
Yeah, we almost hit 24,000, but we haven't updated it today. Yeah.
So 24,000 to date.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's insane. I mean, if you were to order 24,000 units from China, for example, it would take you ages for them to even respond to you.
That's
it just
right.
goes to show the power of decentralizing such resources.
So we made 24,000, but like I think Malaysians have made at least 500,000 by now, or 1 million. Like, and I don't take any credit for this, right? But just hats off to everybody for doing this together.
That's so incredible. But I think when I see stories like this, I'm like, okay, you guys have the motivation to do it, but how do you fund it? It's a bit of a chicken and egg, right? Because people want to donate to a cause where they see tangibility, where they see an end product. But you're in a scenario where you want to help, but in order to create that end product, you need funding first.
That's right. So I think we are very blessed, to be honest, Daniel. Like we maintain really good relationships with our partners, with our corporate clients, with our funders, with the general business community in Malaysia, for one, right? And for this purpose, we were not quite sure what was the best approach at the time, but we knew we needed to move really quickly and really fast. For example, like we were footing bills for the first 4 days, and it had already reached about 25,000 ringgit. And we're like, okay, this is going to be problematic because we have over 100K of wages to be paid every month. Plus, like now there's this new project that's not even like what we do generally in our living that has come to play, but there's no funding for this. So we launched a public donations campaign to kickstart this initiative, right? Because when we first shared what we were doing, we started receiving calls. And I think if there's any of you right now who are listening to this who want to offer disaster relief for the coronavirus, like, please don't worry about your funding, man. Like, when, if you can imagine it in your mind, like, it will happen in real life for sure, guys, for sure. So within 3 days, we were like, how are we going to collect funds? So I said, we can put up a website. So we put up a website in 24 hours, and we had this landing page, and we shared it with in our channels. We had collected about 100,000 in 3 days. So yeah, that just happened like that. The Malaysian public is amazing, and the Malaysian corporate partners we had who trusted our reputation and believed in us also joined on board. And since then, we've been stopping any more funds coming in, because if it's public donations, it's very, very different from a corporate deal, right? So you got to be very transparent with your costs. You might not want to be charging for labor because this is public funds, right? So in the first round of our campaign, which just concluded today, we have fully sponsored all labor from within our organizations and our partner organizations like Taylor's Me.reka. Even Taylor's University has sponsored their team members to be on board to actually mobilize this together with us. And we have not taken a single cent of that money towards any profit, any labor cost. So we use the funds collected directly for material procurement to pay our suppliers and for logistics. We had around 40,000 on top of the 100,000 come in as in-kind donations of material sponsorship. So we had like acrylic factories calling us and saying like, guys, I will give you the fabric. This uncle in Clay, he's like, I make like 10 tons of PVC sheets a day. Like, guys, just tell me what you need, like I'll get it to you and I don't want any funds. We've had like really good Samaritans come. Like some people say like, guys, I have an injection molding plant. Like I'll just make the mold for you. It'll be ready in 2 weeks and we can make 5,000 units a day. We didn't pursue the injection molding path because being in rapid prototyping, we want to validate our design and really get that right first, right? However, there are already 4 or 5 injection molds in the country currently operating, and they are pumping out about 5,000 units a day collectively, I believe.
That's amazing. So, I mean, you're bringing together manufacturers, suppliers, funders, but in order to do that, how much of it was down to actually marketing? Now, with you said you didn't really rely on public funds for this, and if you did, a huge part of it would be digital marketing for sure. But in this entire effort, how much has marketing actually played a role in what you're trying to do?
If the story didn't go out there, nobody would know about what we do, and we would have been in a pretty big fix by now. But thanks to sharing our story with the people out there, telling them why we do it, not just the story, but transparency of the funds. Where has it gone? Like, what are the figures? How many has been made? Who are the hospitals asking for this? For example, if you don't tell someone that I received all these requests from the hospitals to make these items, that's why I'm doing it, they're going to be like, what are you doing this for, mate? Who wants it? Like, how are you going to get it there? There's all these questions, right? So you really need to market and share your data, not the private kind of PDPA data, but the rest of it, whatever is publicly available. We shouldn't shy away from it. We should share information freely, because with the right information at our fingertips, we can mobilize really quickly. We made videos because I think that's people like information in bite-sized chunks now. We've made articles, blog articles. We've had news publications about us, and after a while, after the first 3 days, there was just a lot of media at the office every day. So they were doing the marketing for us, and I think we got in the 2 front pages and quite a bit of publicity. In the past 3 weeks, like I needed to go back to my primal self and focus on the production and the manufacturing. And like I have a very unique skill set when it comes to resources, about negotiations and things like this. And I felt my best skill was used over there. But the rest of the team, they covered the marketing angle, the comms angles, sharing of the data, etc.
We've spoken about open sourcing, working for the betterment of society. The whole coronavirus situation's really attested to that. The overarching theme with everything you're trying to do, at least I feel, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, is sustainability. With that in mind, how do you define sustainability? Because I feel like it's such a broad topic. What is a sustainable organization?
Sustainability, to me, it's about understanding our relationship with the environment, our relationship with people, as society as a whole, and the economy, and realizing that, hey, populations are growing, resources, though abundant, are being manipulated, and not utilized in the best manner, things are going to change in such a way that the cost of inaction right now is going to lead to so much of losses in the future for the future economy. Sustainability is about being accountable for all of this, realizing that you can make a difference, that there is a part that you can play within these 8 billion people as a droplet in the ocean. And your droplet is part of that ocean, right? And what you do matters, because it's not just what you do, is how many other people can you inspire to do the similar things too. There are problems when it comes to building movements, and one of the major problems with the movement of sustainability is we haven't had behavioral change within society, because a lot of people, I believe, see themselves different from others. There is an I and a me, and then there is the rest of the world. How far does this concept of I or me go? Is it just to your significant other and your family, your kids? Does it encompass your uncles and aunties? Is it your neighborhood? Is it just your race, people who share the same skin color as you? Or, I take it as the universe as a whole, right? Is recognizing the whole humanity as one collective consciousness, and that our survival is dependent on the survival of everybody else. A herd can only be as fast as the slowest member in the herd, right? That's why it's called a herd. And we need to bring and uplift each other and move us towards the future.
I think that was a very broad view on sustainability from you, and I think it was a very refreshing view. But I just want to take it a little bit deeper and a little bit more specific. So, for example, you said a sustainable organization is very different from sustainability.
Yes.
So, for most companies that want to get into sustainability, or even maybe startups, for example, and we were speaking before this podcast, and I mentioned that I was in the retail line. I dealt with a little bit of fashion before this. And for that specific industry, I know Me.reka and Biji-biji do use sustainable materials like car seat belts and carpets that have been used for events to recreate and upcycle into different products. But those are very specific products from very specific materials. For example, if someone wanted to start and in my case, a fitness apparel brand, something along the lines of Nike, Reebok, Adidas, how would someone, and I just want to pick your brain, how would someone go about being sustainable in terms of material when the cost of actually building these items are so much cheaper when you go the conventional route? For example, going to China, going to Vietnam, and purchasing polyester, which is basically plastic,
yep,
and using that to create garments. How would you go about that, in the sense where you have to focus on being profitable for your investors, for your shareholders, and as a business, as well as trying to see where you can be sustainable? Is it even possible at all?
If you want to use a sustainable approach to go through the fashion industry, you need to realize some very important factors that come into play, right? Number one, who made your clothes? Like, can we answer that question or not? Don't you want to know? Like, do you not care when if you bought something for 5 ringgit at a bundle that was brand new, and that item came from, let's say, Bangladesh or India or China or whatever, it got shipped over here in a container. There was a business deal between two parties. They made their cuts, and it had to come from there, from the wholesaler to the bundle shops in all the kampungs. And that t-shirt cost 5 ringgit. How much did they get paid to make your clothes? Think about that. Like, it's all about wondering one step deeper, as you say, right? And on the other hand, if that's a business model you want to do, like, so be it, there is a place in the market for you right now in society. But there are so many different ways. There are people who care about where their products come from. There are people who care about the materials they use. There are people who care about the values that the organization holds, who they give their money to. When you spend your money, essentially in life, you are voting, right? It's your right to choose, and that's why you choose to spend. So when you go shopping every day, you buy your eggs, whether they are like free range, free range eggs are going to cost double the price compared to battery eggs, right? It's your decision to vote. And there is more and more momentum in society today than ever before to choose where they want to spend their funds. And people are deciding on the future of the economy right now based upon sustainability driven principles. So if you want to start a fashion industry today, please don't go into fast fashion. That's my recommendation. Yeah, you can make some money now and quick and dirty and stuff like that. But think about the future. Look really deeply into the manufacturing processes involved. Fashion is one of the most polluting industries, right? Over 30% of waste in Malaysia is generated through the fashion industry. And so what if your product costs more? So what if like your materials cost triple what's out there? People have been buying Nike and Adidas and whatever big branded stuff for decades. And the only difference between Adidas and like a generic rip-off is the logo and the fact that you know you bought it. It's a Adidas, right? Then when we were young, like we had Adihas and like all day I dream about sex and whatever not going on. But like, now you see less and less of that. So people were paying for brands back in the day. And brands carry value. And what is the value a brand carries? That's super important. In this day and age, people are going to value integrity, honesty, accountability, transparency, sustainability. So embody those principles and don't be afraid, because all you have to do is carve out your market segment and focus on them, and know that if you are choosing a sustainable market segment, that segment is growing every single day in society, even in Malaysia.
Yeah, and I think I completely agree with you. But just to play devil's advocate here for a little bit,
Yep.
I think to your point, it comes down to a lot of education. And you say we vote with our dollar, right? But what happens when it comes down to the masses that don't get educated on sustainability? One, and two, what you're saying is that we should be willing to pay for a higher price for that sustainability. That's not always the case in the real world. So how then do we still manage that while still being profitable?
For those people who lack the awareness, that is given, right? That's why movements are important. That's why we're building. That's why Biji-biji started. We wanted to change the way people do business. We wanted to change the way people thought about waste, and we wanted to change the world for a better place. And you know what they said? Y'all are mad. That's what I was told. That's what the family tells you. You're crazy. Like, who's going to buy your stuff, man? Like, who is going to pay you? And nobody cares about that. Like, that's not how the business world works. You guys are young and idealistic. You don't know how it is like in the real world, right? So that's the usual motivation you get when you first start doing something. But go down this path. Like, it's just an observation from our own experience, and also from the data that's coming out there today. Now when people call Biji-biji initiatives, they say, hey, Biji-biji, you are the guys, right, who have been doing sustainability from last time, right? Yeah, so we want to do the go green thing. Can you help us with that? So it starts gaining momentum, right? And it's starting to be commonplace. We are starting to see really big corporates who really need to be able to buy their impact now, because sometimes they don't have any, and they are held accountable by global reporting standards, right? That they need to adhere to. They have KPIs that they need to meet in terms of sustainability as well. So we now help those brands to be more sustainable and look at better ways of doing their business. So yeah.
So you're saying that the change needs to come from, supply and demand. For sure, that makes sense. The education is more widespread in developed nations. But to play devil's advocate, and I guess to kind of Brandon's example with a retail brand, right?
Yeah.
In Malaysia, say you have a group of friends in their early 20s who, are in a village somewhere up north. And then they go, okay, we really want to start a retail brand. And they know that the fast fashion route is the cheapest way to do it and the fastest way for them to get out of, I guess poverty is an extreme example, but let's say they're of a less economically comfortable background. They just really want to make it. They want to provide for their family because right now they're living on a paddy field or something. So if you get a group of these boys coming to you at Me.reka or Biji-biji, how are you balancing their personal hierarchy of needs, which is to survive and to alleviate their own community out of poverty, versus, being sustainable for other people?
As I mentioned, the first thing, bro, is like organizational sustainability, and worry about your bread and butter first, right? It's okay, I think, personally, this is my view. It's okay if you did something that is not so sustainable first, but if you have the right vision that is driving you towards that purpose, it doesn't matter like if you have to fall along the way and do certain choices that are maybe not the best in that moment. So start first, start easy, take the low hanging fruits, get yourself acclimatized, build your arsenal, build your capacity, navigate your network, get all those things going right. But if you want to go fast, sure, go alone, do the usual route. You'll get there quickly. But if you want to go far, right, you got to choose sustainability, because where do you see yourself in 20 years? Like how many people are going to go down that path of fast fashion, and how many retail brands are out there? How are you going to stand apart from all that noise that's out there? As I said, I think people buy the story behind your product, right? So it's okay if at the start you make a T-shirt that is not so, it's not made from recycled materials or anything like that. It's produced from China. It's your MVP. It's the idea that you have, the blocks, that the foundations that you're building towards a larger purpose. So it's about knowing your place. Even though the answer doesn't come in one way, shape, or form, there are many ways. So like balance your impact. Sometimes you might have to do something not so sustainable in a certain manner. For example, the example I gave you about the PPE gowns being a single-use, unsustainable product, but it still had the ability to have a sustainable economy model for those underprivileged people who need to make those items. And the answer is never one. Don't believe anybody who tells you this is the way. Ask that person to go screw themselves, right? The answer comes in diversity. There are many parts, and it's all about everyone playing their part in their own unique way, shape, and form, and then coming together as a human alliance, right, as a whole. So yeah, don't feel demotivated if you're not doing anything sustainable to begin with. Just have that in the back of your mind, guiding you.
I like that. So basically, work towards it. It's okay to not be sustainable as long as you have a vision to be sustainable.
Yeah, my story is like, I personally, like, I'm not vegetarian. I'm vegetarian on a lot of days, but when you talk about the conversation of vegetarianism with people who are, and about sustainability being the biggest reason, and like about 40% of Europe is probably vegetarian right now, if you want to say the least. I just thought like, I'm going to eat some cows today, but like I'll rear some cows in the future one day and give them a really good life. So that's my version of justifying sustainability in my way. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally flawed it off with this, right? But
So
that's
you have
how
a very big picture for sustainability in your mind.
yeah. If I can if I have to use plywood today, so that when the day bamboo ply comes to Malaysia, and I'll be able to use the stockpile to create ever more beautiful stuffs and build my reputation as a person who can make products from plywood and then move on to bamboo in the future, then I'm good. I'm setting myself up for the future. I can't be penny wise, pound foolish. A lot of people get caught up in the little things, and I really hate this about humanity sometimes. Like, we like to focus on the little things, and then yes, it's the little things that make the big things work. That's really my philosophy. But sometimes just let them go.
You just have to pick and choose.
Pick and choose. So like I learned as a kid that if it's not a matter of principle, just adjust lah. Come on. Like if it's your principle, then it's fine. Like, okay, that's your principle. I ain't gonna mess with you about that. But if it's not, like, chill. Like, there is many answers, and like that's why I like anthropologists, like, to be honest.
So on the topic of principles, that kind of leads us to our next kind of segment of this podcast, right?
Okay.
So in this short amount of time that you've been here on Earth, you've clearly achieved a lot of things. We want to dive a little bit into your background and kind of how you mentioned earlier that we as human beings are hosts for ideas, right? And we just kind of want to dive into how is it that you developed these ideas along the way? Coming from a little boy in Selayang to going to Manchester, how was that journey for you, and what were the pivotal moments in your journey that kind of led you onto the path that you are now? And tying it back to our topic of business unplanned, how planned was it? How unplanned was it? How unexpected was the journey for you?
Funny you call it business unplanned, right? Because I've always had this idea that I always know what I want to do with my life since I was a kid. So when I was 5, I already knew I wanted to be an astronaut. When I was like 12, I knew I wanted to work like do IT. And like, I'm pretty certain that by 35, I'm going to be a teacher. And by 50, I'm going to be doing this. So like, I've had all these plans as a child. And I've always tried to say I don't want to change as much as everybody changes. But yeah, I'm just another kid from Selayang, bro. Like, me and my buddies, like, we still hang out together every now and again. We talk about nonsense together. But always was a little bit unique because I was given the opportunity by my family to be allowed to question, to be allowed to ask, to be shared many different points of view. So I had my local community in my school. I had my Sikh community who I was raised within, and they shared a lot of interesting perspectives about collective consciousness and stuff that shaped my existence. I've had some of the moments that shaped my life were really like this diversity in ideas that were always chanced upon me, right? And having the internet and being a very young user of the internet, I started using the computer at the age of 5, and started discovering Wikipedia when I was 10, started questioning, like went to my parents at age 11 and said, I don't believe in God anymore, like it's all a lie. And they said, like, just go to sleep and talk to us in 20 years, right? We're fine with you. So
Quite surprised they didn't whoop you.
yeah, very, very accepting parents, right? I was always the odd one out in school. People always laughed at me. They always disagreed with my points of view, my opinions. They thought that I was a little bit strange, but like we got along really well with everyone. I would have like really heated arguments sometimes about religion for 3-4 hours with some people in my school, for example. But I realized early on that it's okay to be different, because in the end of the day, I'm the same as everybody else. I'm human. We all have equal potential is something I believe in, and we all have equal capabilities. Like if you are within the bell curve, right? Like of course, there's outliers who have exceptional abilities and like disabilities too. But generally, a lot of us have equal potential. Maybe it will take me 5 hours to learn video editing when Daniel can do it in like 30 seconds or something like that. But we can do what we want to do. And so this philosophy of being able to achieve something if you really want it, that guided me really strongly as a kid. So I had things like my parents would tell me, like, if you get number 1, 2, 3 in class, like we ain't gonna bug you. But the moment like it goes to number 4, like then like you gotta study harder, you gotta go to tuition, you gotta not watch TV and stuff. So I would just get consistently number 3 every time, because I know what score number 2 gets, which is a lot of work, and then number 4 is like how far behind. So I had my
just enough,
right? I had my sweet spot right there. And then I went on to college, where I realized like, hey, there are more people who are kind of have similar ideas to me, who share similar ways of thinking, and I always learn to layan as well. So when somebody gives you a new idea or perspective, you don't have to accept it, you don't have to reject it straight away. Just entertain it, man. Like yes, I know this is how you think. I hear you, right? And then when I went on to university, that really changed a lot for me, because I have so many friends over there who I consider as family. And being with Caucasian people who saw me as one of their own, just because of the way we thought and the things that we shared and the values that we held, that really catapulted my learning experience. I worked at the festivals in the UK for 3 years consecutively, and that's where I learned my building skills, right? And I came back and applied that to making machines after that. And I applied the skills that I learned in making machines, the palm oil waste industry, to make little things in Biji-biji. Because I realized that, hey, if you want to make a prototype, don't make that prototype 10 meters tall and 6 meters wide, because when there is something wrong with your prototype, you are going to be screwed. So now we make little things, right? Now we fail fast. These are some of the experiences that I've had that have guided my life.
So those experiences have obviously led to some amazing things, and no doubt with all the media coverage that you, Me.reka, Biji have all had over the years, they cover these achievements, and that's great. But what about the dark side of business? Because not many interviewers ask about this, and Brandon and I know this for sure. With our pursuit of things, you go through those periods where you're alone. You've distance yourself from friends, you're struggling with anxiety, some people have depression. It can get quite dark. You have, like you said, you had these huge overheads of staff salaries that you have to pay for every month. And now we're in this period of a movement control order and a pandemic. And now, as a business owner, you have all these people's livelihoods on your dime.
Absolutely.
What have you struggled with? What has been the biggest setback that has caused that struggle, and how have you overcome it?
As you know, like I've talked a lot about things, right? I like to make things. I love things because they follow logic and, reason, and there's a fact, there's a way about it. And like if it's meant to work, it works, right? It only never works when you really want it to work. That's fine. That's just so, right. But with people, it's so unpredictable and it's so exciting and it's so turbulent. Yet, things can get really heated as well when it comes to business, when it comes to funds, when it comes to livelihoods. So how I cope with it, to share the truth, is I don't alone, right? I have a team who does that together with me. Each of us has our skills. Each of us has our domain of expertise. There's a place for everybody, right? There's a place for people who are really cautious. There's a place for people who are really playful. There's a place for the nutters, the futurists, the analytical people, the process-oriented people. And I think it's about having a balance of diversity within the team has really allowed me to be who I am and to have my struggles and my difficulties, yet still be able to move on and continue, because we're in it for the long run. We're in it for the bigger picture, right? So you have a vision and a mission, and then like the collective works towards that, and that's the North Star that guides us. But yeah, sometimes, things get tough and it's out of your control and you can't do about it, and it's people's lives, and there's like money involved, bro. And whenever there's money involved, like it can get really sticky, right? But we've been lucky. Like I've chosen to work with my best friends. As I told you, for me, the measure of my success is the success of those around me. If like my friends are successful, I feel successful. So that has really helped us as an organization and me personally persevere, because I'm doing this with good people. I know that we're going to do a lot of good if we get there, when we get there.
Perfect. So, I mean, as we come to the end of this, there are so many takeaways that we have from the stories that you've shared, and we genuinely appreciate it. If, for whoever's listening, there's an aspiring entrepreneur, there's someone that's the head of a major corporation, there's people from all over the world, what is one piece of advice that you can just leave with them before we wrap up here?
For an aspiring entrepreneur?
Sure. Or someone who wants to leave a positive impact on this earth and they just don't know how.
I'd say just do and don't think, like give it a shot. You never know till you never go. Right?
Screw it and do it.
Screw it and do it, bro. That's it. Like, come on. Like, what's the worst that could happen, right? And like, start now. Why are you waiting? What are you waiting for? How long you want to be a slave for a big corporation that, these systems only exist to train a generation of administrators and secretaries. Like, how long do you want to be in that rat race, in that chain of command of system? Like, you are at the bottom of this if you're playing that game. There is a new game that is not zero-sum, right? There is a win-win game to be played in the business world, and I want you to give it a shot, try it out. How are you going to know until you give it a shot? I didn't know 95% about the things that I spoke to you about before I did it.
Before we end, is there anything that you would like to plug, whether it's Me.reka or Biji-biji, or even just the protecting our frontliners movement?
We're launching, we've concluded phase 1 of our campaign, and we've donated 25,000 shields, 1,500 arrow chambers, 100 incubator boxes, and I want to call you to join on what phase 2 of our campaigns, where we want to work towards sustainable business models where young businesses can actually produce impact and survive themselves while supporting the cause and while creating impact within society.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, G. We really,
Yes.
really appreciate your time. It's amazing what you're doing. It's inspirational. Keep it up. I'm sure everybody will stay tuned and stay safe.